Okay, so today is Monday the 18th, and I have a couple of goals of our call today. As always, my goal is to get you guys out in 20 minutes, so I will stop talking at 7:24, and at that point, we're going to go through some core stuff at that point, and I will not record it at that point with anyone on the screen. I am going to record it. I have my model Nikos to help us out, but I won't be recording any of you guys. So my goal today is to talk about, we're going to do a part 2 of electrolytes and hydration. So we talked a little bit about that last week. If you didn't catch it, you'll still be able to catch on today. It won't be any rocket science yet. And we are also going to talk about a couple things on final surge, a couple reminders. And then we're going to dive into easy pace for long runs. That's going to be a majority of our chat today. And then, like I said, we'll go over planking, proper form for that. And I hope to teach you guys all some new stuff on plank, even though we all do plank all the time. If you guys are following your plan, you're doing it. Not a ton right now with the current core work, but anyway, and then as always, if you have any questions, you can use the chat feature, but I might not see it because I might just be so excited about our current running topic. So as always, putting it in your comment section on Final Surge is going to be the most productive. We are going to go on to Final Surge at some point too. So if you need to, if you want to grab your phone or anything like that and log in, if you're not always automatically logged in, that I would suggest, and we will go from there. Okay, so last week we talked about electrolytes and carbohydrates. We're gonna keep just doing like a little bit of it at a time. So last week we talked about with any runs or workouts that are 60 minutes or longer, that you are taking in electrolytes and carbohydrates. So taking in hydration means every 10 minutes you're taking 1 to 2 sips of water. Did anyone try that this week for the first time? No, some of us are already pros at that. Next, we do have one person that tried. Awesome. And then next, you want to be taking in electrolytes and carbohydrates, which we can dive into what that actually means again. 15 minutes before your activity, and then every 45 minutes within that activity. Meaning you're going to take that 15 minutes before, and then you start your workout, and 45 minutes into it, you're going to take your first dose of carbohydrates and electrolytes, and then every 45 minutes from there. Again, we talked last week about if you are just getting to that 60-minute point, or you're not quite there, or you're not sure if you foresee yourself there, it's still a good idea to practice this in some of your shorter runs. So making sure that you're doing that in like your weekday runs, or when you have some shorter runs, that's going to be a better time to try out your electrolytes and carbohydrates, so that if you have any stomach issues during your run, you're not totally putting a kibosh on your long run, and you're able to get through that. So that's my biggest advice. If you have more questions on that, you can look at last week's Zoom, and we go a little bit more into that. That'll be on your Final Surge plan in last week's thing. So if you can't find it, just let me know. Next, I want to talk about with electrolytes and carbohydrates. Last week we talked about what that means is it's basically an energy component, so sugar, as well as a salt component, which makes up the electrolytes that you're leaving when you sweat. Salt is the very generic term, and most of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is very generic, so it's a lot more complex than just salt and sugar, but that's basically how it's easy to remember. When I say electrolytes and carbohydrates, it can mean that we have the goo packets that you can get at a race. You have gel packets that is similar to goo, but not the same consistency. You have like the gummy form, so things like shot blocks or honey stingers. They have like they taste like candy. They're pretty awesome. And then also you can get it in the form of a hydration, so such as Gatorade, liquid, Noon, all those kind of things. Those all are doing the exact same thing. So why that's important is if you're during your run, if you have a water bottle full of Noon and you're taking sips of that every 10 to 12 minutes, you do not need to replace at 45 minutes unless you feel like you're really hitting a wall, you're not able to get the energy through. So I prefer, and I suggest to all my runners, that you use water in your water bottle. And if you're planning on taking your electrolytes and carbohydrates from something that's liquid, then I would suggest having a second water bottle that you take at 45 minutes. One of the big reasons for that, physiologically, you're able to get the amount of energy that you would need if you were taking sips every 10 minutes of electrolytes and carbohydrates. But what happens is that keeps your metabolism on the entire time and your digestive system. So keeping it off for 45 minutes at a time allows your body to utilize your muscular energy systems. And then when you need that energy because you're running low, you're able to take it from that 45-minute mark. If you're constantly taking it throughout the whole cycle of your run, then you're only able to utilize it. You're not teaching your body how to utilize your own energy systems. You're teaching your body how to only utilize the ones that you're taking in at that very moment. So that is why I suggest using just regular water during the runs. The other reason is a lot of times if you're out for, like, say if you're going towards that half marathon or marathon distance, if you're taking in a sip of sugar every 10 minutes, you are going to get some nasty, nasty gut rot. So that is probably the more important reason, especially once you get towards that like 3-hour running mark and more, is you're just going to have a horrible gut rot, not going to really enjoy that feeling at all of that sluggish feeling. So that is our second part of hydration and nutrition. So what I want you guys to all do this week is to practice one of those during your, or to practice both of those during your runs during the week, and then really feel like you're pretty confident going into your long runs. It's really important to start practicing that now and to make sure that that is not a thing that you're concerned about on, like, whether it's race day, whether it's your epically awesome long run day. There are so many different factors when it comes to your long runs and your races and everything, that the last thing you want to worry about is whether your hydration is going to work that day, or whether your electrolytes are going to work that day, because you want that down to a science by the time that race day comes. There's nothing worse also than trying a new hydration thing on a race day and finding out that it definitely doesn't work with your stomach or system. I got a question: does it matter how a runner fuels during different seasons, like need less or more during hot or summer versus winter and spring? Awesome question. Yes and no. So it's kind of a loaded question. Yes, it does differ from season to season based on what your typical hydration is. Most, obviously in the summer, we're all typically really on top of our hydration because we're aware of how much sweat we're losing. But when we aren't aware of it so much as in winter, when you're breathing really heavy, you're typically a little bit more dry because you're spending more time inside, you're more dehydrated in general. All of those factors, it's probably more important, not more important, but as important to make sure you're on top of it in the winter. Spring and fall, it'll fluctuate just as like normal, your normal hydration would, if you notice that you're typically more dehydrated, more hydrated, all those things during those seasons. So if, to kind of come back around with that, it's more, just because it's colder outside doesn't mean you want to neglect any of those things. In fact, you might want to be more on top of making sure that you're doing that, especially if you're wearing a mask or a buff or anything like that that's covering your mouth. You're going to take a little bit more hydration out of your mouth as well. Okay, if you have more questions or more specific questions on the hydration and electrolytes, I'd really love to hear some comments and questions about that so that I can address them specifically. So even if you're like, I'm not really sure, I tried this, didn't work, or I don't feel like I need it, or whatever, just please let me know so I can kind of address that a little bit more further, because I'm sure if you're having it, other people are too. It's I always say it takes quite a while to figure out what's going to work best for every single individual. I usually find in every season, especially marathon, for me in a marathon season, I stick with one specific brand and I like absolutely love it. And then come marathon day, I'm like, if I have to have one more of these things, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So then I find I burn out, and so I have to find another one. So I typically try to kind of go through a couple different brands on different runs. So I stick with one brand on one run. If I'm using honey stingers that day, the whole day is honey stingers of that run. If the next day I choose goo, then that whole run is goo. So I don't try to mix and match within one day. Okay, next we are going to go over final surge functions. So if you want to pull out your phone, or if you're on your desktop, you can as well. I touched a little bit about this last week, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper because I think there was a little bit of confusion on it. So we're going to go into the comments versus post-workout notes. So you can click on literally any single workout from last week that you did. So if you click on any run, so go into your workouts and then click on that run. If you're in the app, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the top right corner, which is the 3 little dots, and you're going to hit edit. And you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to see post workout notes. That is where you can give like literally every single rundown of that run. Mile 1.2, I saw a cool dog. At mile 1.3, my left shin hurt for 13 seconds. At mile 1.4, whatever you want to do. The more in depth you get, the better, the more I can see on for future workouts. But that, I'm not getting a constant alert for that. So if you just want to like, think of it as like your running diary or your journal that I have access to. So don't put anything too personal that you don't want me to know. But I've probably heard most of it before. So that's where you want to put in like really long details and everything like that. Now, so we're going to close out of that section. The next area we're going to go into, so we're still on the run workout that you selected, but now there's a little bubble on the top right corner underneath those 3 dots. That looks like a little talking bubble. That is the comment section that I get constant alerts to. So I get that as a text message. So I can see if you have, and I check it probably like 5 times a day, and I try to comment back as often as I can. And if there's something that deems it. So I know a lot of people have been loving to write that they did their core work, and honestly I really love seeing it because I'm really happy to see people are doing their core work. Or you can say like, hey, I don't understand how my watch works on this function, or something like that. And then typically what I do is I screenshot that and make sure I write that in my notes for us to talk about, or I remember to send an email out, or any of those kind of things. Let's see, I got one question about what is the app that you suggested for Apple Watch for users beyond Strava? The Under Armour app is the other one that works really well. So that syncs really well with the Apple Watch. And that does all the splits for all the runs too. Okay, so that's the difference between the comments versus the post-workout notes. So that is what I'm happy if you leave as many comments as you want to, but remember that's where I'm going to see an instant thing. I will look at all your post-workout notes, but it might be 2 or 3 times over the week, as long as I'm not seeing, like usually I'm looking for colors and patterns and things like that. So if you're looking for either instant feedback, if you really want like a thumbs up, or if you really just are really excited you did your core work or something went really well, I love to hear about it. So go ahead and post in that comment section, and that's where I'm getting the alerts. Okay, unfortunately I like really screwed myself on time for talking about easy pace, because that is the most important topic that I'd like to discuss today. And so I have a feeling it'll carry on to next week. So if you had a time trial last week, which most of you guys did, not everybody, some people have their time trial coming up this week, I sent you paces and notes for how to follow that and recommendations. And most of you, I would guess, looked at the easy pace and thought, what the heck, that's so slow. I'm running so much faster than that. Why does she think I'm slow? I don't think you're slow. What I want is for those easy paces to be so easy that you are able to tell me literally every single thing that you ate that day. I want you to be able to sing and belt out every song that your favorite song is on the radio right there. I want you to be able to hold a full conversation with your mom or with your friend and be able to, they won't even know that you're on a run. That's where I want that easy pace. And why that matters, as I'm sure you're all wondering, is for a lot of different reasons. And there's a lot of physiology behind it. And most at the highest level, what we're looking for in those easy paced runs is called running economy. And so running economy is basically the volume of oxygen that we're using at sub-maximal speeds. So in a nutshell, what that means is it indicates how hard you're working relative to your ability to use, or it's how hard you're working relative to what you have available to you. So you want to use as little as possible. You want to burn as little energy as you can at the same speed that someone else is using, at the same speed that someone else is, but burning way more energy is kind of how I try to think of it. So basically, the more efficient and effective you are with your running economy, the faster you can go while using less energy. So I know that was a lot of words and hopefully that made sense. So I'm going to try to reiterate that in a couple different ways. And when we think of using, so the biggest thing when we're doing our long, easy runs is we're using our aerobic energy. So aerobic meaning we're using our oxygen versus if you're doing strength or like a speed workout, we're using anaerobic, which we're using muscular reserves, different energy systems versus the aerobic. So what we want to do, that big piece of aerobic energy is utilizing oxygen and utilizing that within our body, sending oxygen to our muscles, sending it to our lungs, being able to cycle through that as easily as possible with no stress to your body. The more we can do that within your easy runs, then the more your body just becomes kind of used to that, accumulates it, and is able to pick up a lot faster during other runs, so such as your speed runs, such as your tempo runs, all of those kind of things. So basically we are building up a giant aerobic base in order to have a giant or a really solid foundation and able to grow from there. And then if we want to get a little bit more deeper into like the musculature and the muscle fibers and everything like that, I'll just give you one little thing. The main thing, or one of the things that we want to be able to do is to transport oxygen really fast. And the more we can use our muscle fibers and the more muscle fibers we have, and the more capillaries we have per muscle fiber allows you to transport that oxygen faster and more efficient. So a lot more than you probably wanted to know. And I have like 18,000 articles on it that if you're looking for either really in-depth, more in-depth, or less in-depth, let me know and we'll continue to talk about it. So the biggest reason why I say that is because on everybody's long runs, if I gave you an example of I want your long run between 10 to 10:40 pace, I'm still seeing everyone in the 9-minute pace, for example. So what I want you to do is to really slow it down. I know that we have this like amazing competition with our GPS watches, and for some reason I have it too. I'm like, oh, I know my easy run should be a 9:30, but I see 9:30 and I'm like, gosh, I know I could go faster than this. Like, absolutely you can go faster than this, but going slower in your long runs and your easy runs is going to be able to help you utilize even more speed, more function, get your lactate threshold even higher, increase your VO2 max, and all of those awesome things that we really want to become a more effective, a more efficient runner. Did that make any sense at all? Okay, good. Great. So moral of the story is I want you guys to run slower, and then you will be utilizing way more, you'll become way more effective. All right. And then last, we have one more minute and then I'm late. And then Nikos, are you ready? Okay, Nikos is going to be our model today for our core work. But last thing is I have a social media challenge for you guys this week, and I will be giving away 2 spectacular prizes. So if you are on Instagram, this will apply to you. So my goal is to see you guys doing your core work this week, and I have 2 prizes. One for whoever tags me in the most amount of things based on your core work, and 2 for the most creative core work picture. And I know you guys are creative, so I don't even want to give you any ideas on what that could possibly look like. So you can do that on Instagram. So you're going to you could do both. You can hashtag me at hashtag Run Momentum MKE, or you can use the little @ at Run Momentum MKE. I'll count both of those at that. And you can do it on your story or on the regular post, and I will count all of them. So remember, the most amount of tags and the most creative tags will win some interesting prizes, and you're gonna want them, I swear. Okay, so next up, I am going to, we're gonna work on core. We're only going to do 2 exercises to start, and then depending if I'm like running too far over time, then we'll stop from there. So I would like you guys to get on the ground. We're gonna do some planking and some bridge work. So if you need a mat, grab it. And I will continue to record this, but I won't record any of you guys doing the course, so you won't be able to see it, and I'm doing that right now. So I also won't be able to see if you guys are asking me any questions or anything, so we'll kind of free this. All right, so we have my trusty model and fabulous husband, Nikos. Say hi, Nikos.
Hi, Nikos.
Okay, so we're going to go over a plank today. And why I think that matters is because a lot of people do planks, but I think we're kind of BSing our way through that. So what I would like, you can either choose if you're going to do a straight arm plank or a bent arm plank. It's up to you. I'm going to have Nikos do a bent arm plank today. So what I want is, so I'm going to point out a couple things that he's doing. And I've asked him to, do some different stuff. So what I want, first of all, is to make sure that your elbow is directly underneath your shoulder. So that's the first thing you want to make sure you're doing. A lot of times I see people's arms too far forward or too far back. The other thing, so the other thing that I want you to do is if you have if you're on your elbows, I want you to make sure that your hands are not folded like this. In fact, they are equally spaced apart like this. And at any point, you could take a break, by the way. But try to stay planking the whole time. I won't have you go too long. So to recap, you want your elbows directly underneath your shoulders, and if you're in a straight arm plank, your hand would be right underneath your shoulder. If you're in a straight arm plank, go ahead into the straight arm plank. What I would like is a soft bend in your elbow. So making sure that you're not totally locked out at your joint, but a really soft bend right there. And again, your hand is right underneath your shoulder. Okay, I want everyone to take a quick little break from their plank. It's more for Nikos. Okay, so now we're gonna go back into the plank. So set up your hands exactly how they're supposed to be, whether you're on straight arm or bent arm, I don't care at this point. Next thing I want you to do is we're gonna target in the core area. So what I want you to do is I want you to, and make sure you're breathing this whole time, I want you to squeeze your abs as tight as you possibly can without changing your form at all. So notice Nikos turned on his abs, but he didn't move anything. So nothing shifted at all. What I want you to pretend to do is like as if someone is about to punch you. So you're still breathing, but your abs are braced in really tight. Okay, go ahead and relax, everyone. What I want, my whole purpose of doing this is when we're doing the plank, you should only be able to really hold for about 30 seconds or a minute. And I want it to be awesome. I want it to hurt. I want it to feel really good, like hurt in a good way. And I want it to be super effective and turn on all the muscles. Okay, let's go back to your plank, either elbows or straight arm. Your abs are on tight. And now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to squeeze your glutes or your butt as tight as you possibly can. Next thing I want you to do, so notice how Nikos is going to stay exactly in the same form But now I want you to turn on your quads, which is the muscle right here on your legs. So now everything is turned on. Your abs are turned on, your butt's turned on, your quads are turned on. Everything is active in this plank. Your arms are activated, but your arms aren't doing all the work. You've got 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. So if you are doing that correctly, you should be out of breath, you should be tired. If you are not out of breath and you're not tired, then chances are you're not activating everything as fully to the max. Okay, last one we'll do is a bridge. So I'm going to have you flip over onto your back, and now we do have these in a lot of the core workouts right now. So you're going to go onto your back. Upper body can be pretty relaxed. There's nothing really going on over here. And what's really going to matter, let me get out of the way, is where your feet are positioned. Now this will be a little bit different for everybody. So I'm going to have your feet should be both facing forward. So instead of you don't want to be duck-toed or pigeon-toed or anything like that, but both toes facing forward. And then you're going to lift your hips up into the air. Now what I want you to do is I want you to turn on your abs as tight as you can again. So prepare for that bracing. Now, if you are feeling this more in your quads, so the top of your legs, I want you to walk your feet towards your butt a little bit more. If your hamstrings, which is the bottom part of your leg, have not engaged or turn on, then I want you to walk your feet back forward a little bit. So I want you to find that sweet spot for where your glutes and your hamstrings are turning on. This should not be, the purpose of these exercise is not to have your quads activated, but to be the lower chain. So to be your hamstrings and your glutes. If you need to take a break, go ahead. If you can hang on, go ahead and keep hanging on. Now, the next thing I want you to do, you have your abs on, but I also want you to engage your lower back as well. So turning that on. And so you might have to shift your pelvis a little bit, you know, whether you are shifting up or down, anything like that, kind of think of it as a hip thrust, but how you can possibly turn that on or off. Okay, I'm going to have everyone relax just a little bit. All right, we're going to go up into that bridge one more time. Go ahead. Now, I love the bridge because it is a really effective exercise, just like the plank, but you really can cheat your way through it, making it really easy. So making sure that everything is always turned on as you're doing this one. Squeeze your glutes as tight as you possibly can. Squeeze your hamstrings. And if you ever get a hamstring cramp, then just relax yourself down. One way to really check to make sure that you're really doing this right is we're going to go on to, don't do it yet, but we're going to go on to 1 foot, and you're going to just lift 1 foot about an inch up off the ground without letting your pelvis shift. So that is going to be the biggest test. So go ahead and lift 1 foot up and don't let that pelvis shift. Good. And then drop it down, and we're going to switch to the other side. Now you should be activating a ton of muscles here, and go ahead and relax down and relax all the way down. So if you're like Nikos, you might have gotten a muscle cramp at this point. If you haven't, we might not be able to, you might not be activating the proper musculature during that process. So we want to make sure that you are focusing on making it a really active exercise. The core workouts are only 5 minutes, and they're designed to be very tough within those 5 minutes, and then they're able to be transferred to your run. So I'm going to stop recording at this point.